gentlemen, welcome back to HMP. My name is Adam Porchers, and I hope you're ready to end Sean Like Spaceships month with a bang, because today we cover the vast of night. And I'm joined today by a man who's always got his luckies rolled up in his sleeves. Sweet Sean's a Kovacs from the internet.
Bacon 940. Is this thing on?
And he's the switchboard operator to your heart, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I got to talk for a minute, guys. I need the listeners at home to know we're recording this at 7:30 a.m. on a Saturday. And my dad thought he had it rough when he worked in the coal mine. So, God.
Sometimes, you know, you have to soldier through the tough times. And, you know, when you're on the front lines like we are.
My grandpa getting shot in the belly in Italy during World War II, he didn't know what it was really like to suffer.
That guy got up at 8.
I don't even have any creamer in this coffee.
Utterly disgusting. But we hope the cream has risen to the top here at the end of Sean Like Spaceships months, because today we're talking 2019's The Vast of Night. Something that we talked about like previously before the mics warmed up here and everything. We had no idea that this movie kind of even existed, really. People aren't talking about this, and we'll talk about why they perhaps should. But how did you come across this, Sean?
It was during quarantine, and someone whose opinion I trust said, hey, this movie is very well shot, and it will surprise you. And it is a little tiny budget sci-fi thriller. Check it out. And man, oh man, when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is exactly the scratch I was looking, or the itch I was looking to scratch. Like it just hit me perfectly when I saw it during 2020. And after that, it kind of left my head for a bit. And then Sean Like Spaceships come up, and, you know, like I think I said last week, it's that thing where like I see a movie or I suggest a movie that's something that I hadn't seen before, and it's awful. So then I have to course correct and go, at least I know this movie's good. And so last week we saw Murder in Space, which is a great title to something that is basically Murder, She Wrote on a set that looks like a spaceship.
And I got to say, the weirdest thing, not watching that movie has really grown on me in the last week.
And then we hit, and so I was like, man, we got to go out with something great that no one's ever heard of before. And so The Vast of Night, here we are.
Before we get into all of that, we do want to say a big giant thank you to the people that support the show over at patreon.com/HMP. Those awesome people get the pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and of course they get to vote on what we watch. And this month, obviously, you voted on Sean Like Spaceships, and it's been mostly fruitful, mostly fruitful. But next month we had you guys vote for what we're covering next month, and here is the breakdown coming in at the bottom. So it was October, so it was all kind of a seasonally themed, appropriate stuff.
Back in my day, we called it Rocktober.
Oh my lord! Well, that also reads into Rockvember as well. So you got to careful. It's a good 2 months in there. Coming in at 4%, Slashamataz. Nobody wanted to see any slashers. That's old and dumb. Monster Mashup.
It's Bass in November. I'm sorry. It took me a long time to
Wow. Way to derail the train for that one, Bruce. Good job.
It was that
you can
quality.
Edit that, right, Adam? You can edit that so I look much wittier.
You know how I do. The Occult and Monster Mashup tied at 7% there, so no bigs on that one. Boogity Babies comes in at 11%.
The name alone, though, I wanted a T-shirt that says "I'm a boogity baby."
That's a part that may be coming back at some point.
Move over, dirty babies. Boogity babies are in town.
22% was Ghosts of Halloween Past, but with a whopping 48% of the vote, Once Bitten, Twice Shy, our werewolves series for next month will start up, and we'll go over where we're starting that at the end of this show. But if you'd like to be like those awesome people,
guys, the power's in my hand. If I finish shooting and editing, that final week could be Werewolf Fighter, a Bruce Leslie production.
Oh my lord, let's pray for our souls, everybody. If you're not religious, it's probably a good time to start getting into it, because if that maniacal laughter is what you hear,
now I've got to go.
Sean, so you're not going to be in for the next couple of weeks, is it? Busy?
Oh, please, buddy,
Busy,
no,
is it?
no.
The
You just lie and said you watched it. You don't really have to watch it. Nobody's
the-
going to let's quiz you.
I will tell you that it took me all told to do the breakdown of this episode. Again, not complaining, glad to do it. 10 hours. 10 hours of work to make this happen this week. Yes.
Thank you. That's a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah. So, but for all of that work and more, patreon.com/HMP and get yourself in on this awesome stuff. Well, let's get into it, guys. Here's the IMDb plot line for The Vast of Night. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. One night in New Mexico in the late 1950s, a switchboard operator and a radio DJ discover a strange audio frequency which could change the future forever. Not too bad, IMDb.
No, that's pretty good, actually.
Not too shabby. This is written by Andrew Patterson and Craig W. Sanger, directed by Andrew Patterson. Why is that a tough name for me?
Also edited, also produced by. He has a bunch of different names so that it's just not his name constantly coming up in the credits.
He's giving himself a little old Soderbergh
hold on,
action.
I'm taking notes.
Yes.
Taking notes. Okay.
You can either go two ways with that. You can either go written, directed, and conceived by, like the Monty Python boys did, or you just come up with a bunch of nom de plumes and you do it that way. Because if you do it the other way, if you do it let's call it the Charles Band way, even though I don't think he did that much either, but just because it's fun to pick on him, I think that it looks awful when the names are scrolling past at the end of your movie. If your name is up there 17 different times, you're doing
Hello, Mr. Wizzo. How may we help you?
Right.
Yeah, when you get into that Neil Breen area where you've done everything
much
in your
better.
film.
Neil Breen is the person that's the perfect pull, Adam, because Neil Breen is somebody who wants you to know I've done it all.
This is me, damn it.
I want to do something, like I want to credit myself as executive producer and as a PA. Like this, I really am. If I'm the one man show, I want to be like a special assistant to Mr. Leslie.
When I say I do everything, I do everything.
Mr. Leslie, welcome to Breentown.
Do you have 15 laptops that do not turn on?
How do you feel about cans of tuna?
Delicious, says I.
On-set Kung Fu Master, Mr. Leslie. No, Master Leslie.
Gives himself a title. All right, let me sell everybody on this low-budget sci-fi throwback because this sucker's got everything. It's the 1950s, so we got fun on a Friday night, classic cars, radio shows, tape recorders, thick rim glasses, interviews, a basketball game, a telephone story time, scary old house story time, fades to black, fades to black, fades to black, shots more ambitious than movies twice its size, and a visit from the stars, and we don't even say the word alien once. This movie's got everything. Let's get into it.
Or UFO.
Oh, yeah, we don't even say that word, do we?
Or flying saucer.
No, circular is about as close as you get to an alien description.
You're going strangely into Bruce territory there, Sean, of just listing things that aren't in the movie.
You know what else isn't there, Charo?
It is noteworthy. It is noteworthy.
It's so strange how they get around it, where you're saying things like people in the sky, which I was like, wow, that's a really effective way of doing that, because people in the sky sounds way creepier than aliens.
And especially since this takes place in the late 50s and stuff, which is obviously just the height of sci-fi and stuff. We're really almost about to kick off into the crazy sci-fi of the 60s and stuff. But the nomenclature has been around for a long time, and the fact that they aren't using it at all is very interesting in this movie.
I looked at a few maybe of the less mainstream online reviews or whatever, and I'm pretty sure that they don't like the use of the word alien or whatever, I guess. So maybe that's part of the thought process that goes into it, because it's starting to get like a politically charged word.
Well, also to get into that, there's the other thing about this movie, which I don't know if you guys did any searching around after you saw the movie, but this is a really divisive movie for some people. Because if you're just going into this cold, and maybe you're somebody who, not to say that you're an idiot if you like this franchise, although you kind of are, is the Fast and the Furious movies. If you're a big fan of those movies, you're not going to like this movie. I mean, it's just, it's the way it goes.
Here's what I'll say. If you like the Fast and the Furious franchise, but you know it's not good, you're
That's
just
different.
having fun. Yeah. But if you
That's
really
different.
think like, dude, nobody gets the heart of a performance like Mr. Diesel, then you're not going to like this. Yeah.
If you don't understand the irony of Starship Troopers, you're not going to like this movie. Let's put it that way.
And I also want to say, and I think we've probably already communicated it well enough, but we're going to use the term low budget. Don't think low budget before you go see this. Like if you're expecting to see something that looks low budget, this does not look low budget. That's part of what amazes me about it.
It's so beautifully shot. It's
or at
so
least it
gorgeous.
Doesn't look low budget to me, a guy who doesn't necessarily
rich.
understand budgets.
It's so rich. It looks I don't even know the right term for it, but it's like it feels like a big budget movie.
It feels like somebody crossed wires and they gave a sci-fi budget to a J.J. Abrams, or that's too much of a polarizing name, but just to somebody who deserves more than a sci-fi budget. Like, I mean, sci-fi, the channel, not the genre.
Right.
Because this SYFY, like you spell it.
Because when you're looking at the price of this, you really need to put this next to what was that we watched, Painkiller Jane, or the Winona Earp show, which I really like, but this looks nicer. I'm not going to deny that,
Right.
So when it's just crazy how nice this looks.
All right, so you want to get into it?
Let's do.
Okay, so here we go.
One more thing, though, I want to ask just one more production question. I'm sorry to interrupt like that.
No worries.
The distribution deal with this, like, do you have any idea how it got discovered? Was it like something that was just submitted to a festival and Amazon picked it up, or did
this was making the festival rounds? And when it gets to TIFF, that the Toronto Film Festival, that's really where it starts blowing up, because that's where Amazon Amazon comes in.
Because I just couldn't help but think if this were an Amazon Studios production from the get-go, it would have a much bigger budget. That's
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But that's also the reason why no one's heard of it, because if Amazon would have produced this movie from the get-go, they would have
they'd be ringing the bell constantly.
Could it be a victim of looking too good and people just think it's another lackluster Amazon product?
No,
don't realize what a labor of love it is, and don't check
no
it out?
I think it has a foot in both worlds, which sometimes makes people off-putting. That's why it's such a divisive movie, is that it looks like a big budget movie that's a small budget movie, and so it's art housey but not, like, it's both things. So like, yeah,
I'm definitely not divided on it. I like both.
No, me too, man. I this is totally my style of movie. Like, if I could watch just this kind of movie forever, I would. And but I'm not your typical girl.
So yeah, man. The writing is one of the biggest strengths of this. So I guess I need to,
and the performances. Well, and the direction.
I need to quit delaying your notes.
Okay, so here we go. So we open, and by the way, I'm not going to get upset if you guys break in. So please feel free. So we open on the Amazon Studios logo, which I think is supposed to invoke feelings of the old HBO logo, because we're flying through city streets as they're being built, but instead it feels more like Jeff Bezos has willed there will be a town here, and so it shall be. And it blinks into existence when we see that the production studio that made this movie is called GED Studios, which is like a regular studio, but instead of graduating on time, the production company had to take some night classes.
I love the look. I just so stupid, but I love the name of the company. B, I love the logo that they put together. The logo's just great looking.
Yeah, it's like a badge. Their badge is really cool.
It's a throwback to kind of your 50s sort of, maybe even 40s even. Like your old GE Westinghouse kind of vibe to it. I like it.
I mean, they're clearly Rod Serling fans, as we'll show with the introduction.
Oh, yeah. We open in a beautifully appointed mid-century living room, complete with retro future CRT television, where the screen looks like just a big bubble. There's no casing around it. And we start to dolly in on this television set, and we're watching a show within a show. The TV set is playing something called Paradox Theater, which is a Twilight Zone allegory, which is something that happens when you're a small budget movie and there's no way you could afford the royalties to the Twilight Zone, because I bet the theme song alone costs more than this movie's entire budget.
And I would say attention to detail like shows how much someone loved this.
Yes.
Like, this was a project that was loved because the attention to detail on, they didn't just take some stock footage and throw some effects over it and use VO. Like, I feel like they actually went and shot the intro for the show with
they definitely did,
yeah.
man. I mean, there's like a hand puppet in there.
Yeah, I just look at that detail and I know that this is the kind of thing that they didn't buy, because of the budget. This is something that they did, and they could have easily cut this out and still had a great movie. But the fact that they put that in here shows me that someone loved this and it wasn't just a resume piece or something.
It's very Rod Serling writing too. That to me, that was the most impressive part, was that they got the tone of that to where if you told me that came from a Twilight Zone script, I would 1000% believe you.
True. And the opening of this cold open that we're in, it's basically letting you know what you're about to see. Right. Because if you're opening with a show within a show, and let's take the Wes Anderson-ness of that, of that moment, it's letting you know that like you are about to see something to set your expectations. Right. So like this is basically what we're about to see is an episode of the Twilight Zone. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you have the set itself that we're in, which is absolutely gorgeous, and the decorator did an amazing job in this scene, where the furniture is absolutely perfect, the artwork is perfect, even the drapes on the window behind the TV set are perfect. Like, everything is great about the scene, letting you know that yes, this is where to set your expectations, but also we know what we are doing.
Yeah,
with both things with this cold open, it's amazing.
Yeah. And I will say I was a little confused by the cold open. Like, I was fully expecting this to just be one of those long, drawn-out studio intros that you get sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me a while to realize, like, this is part of the story.
And I saw an interview with the writer-director, Andrew Patterson. And he said basically what he wanted to do was make a B movie from the 50s, but add on to that, what if that actually happened? Like, what if it was real? That's the style of movie he was going for.
Yeah,
and
I see that. Yeah.
And have you guys seen any pictures of the writer-director of Andrew Patterson? Do you know what he looks like?
I have not. I have no clue, no idea of age, nationality, any of that stuff.
He's 30s, white. Imagine if Jesus and Grizzly Adams had a baby, and it's very clear that that baby does the stuff. Boy, does that baby do the stuff. Like, you could tell by looking at him, like, oh, that guy F's. The guy F's so hard.
He looks like he would be like a 70s singer-songwriter, maybe. A little bit of that.
Yes. He's like Chris Christopherson.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a sweet look.
Giant head of hair, a beard that Bruce would love.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, I could see that.
Well, I'm glad a guy like that's finally getting a shot in Hollywood.
Yeah, somebody who's really handsome and talented. I know. It's unbelievable. So tonight's episode of Paradox Theater is called The Vast of Night. And we see a sign on the highway that says Cayuga, New Mexico. City limit, population 482. And Cayuga was the name of Rod Serling's production company, showing you that the people who made this movie know what they're doing. I am going to say that over and over and over again tonight.
You just made a movie that I already thought was great better, because I didn't even know this. And now you sharing that with me makes me like it that much more.
Oh, man. So we learn there's a basketball game tonight, and we pan down to see one of the movie's two main characters, Everett. He's wearing the hell out of some horn-rimmed glasses and smoking a dart to show you this movie takes place in the 50s when everyone, even doctors and pregnant women, smoked.
Yeah.
No, doctors who were pregnant women smoked during surgery. All right. So there's like, I'm nobody. I'm just talking like from the audience perception, watching TV, listening to podcasts, what you think about movies. Like rule number one that the casual fan like me picks up about low budget is you don't want to do a period piece because that just makes everything more expensive. And the fact that they doubled down and boy, they kick butt on this basketball location. It's as good as anything from Back to the Future. I wonder if they already had the locations because it was shot in Texas. So I'm wondering if they find the locations and they go and they're like, okay, so because you're kind of, when you're this low budget a movie, you kind of have to work with what you have.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's like the Clerk's wisdom that we talked about
right
ago.
Right. So like, I'm sure that the script was written where it's set in the 50s. Just based on the way that characters speak to each other. But there was always probably in the back of the writer-director's mind, if we have to get rid of that so we can make this movie, I can write around that. But they find the gymnasium. They find the cars.
Something else that as a lay person, I think you don't have money for in a super duper micro budget movie like this are extras, but they fill that gymnasium. Once again, there's love and effort being put into this.
Well, Adam will probably tell you this too. I think that's a cheat. Looking at the way that they shoot this movie, both sides of the auditorium are filled, but you never see both sides of the auditorium at the same time.
Hey, still a victory, man.
It's amazing. It is amazing. But yes.
And to me, that's, like I said, that's a bonus. That just shows me that this person really understands limited filmmaking and how to make it look good. And we could all, learn a lot from this guy.
Well, my God, man. I mean, if you were ever on the fence about making your own movie, this is the movie to see because it is so inspiring. To make you want to make
it
stuff.
Could crush your soul, though. I mean, it could be like saying, okay, we're going to put your picture on the refrigerator, but I want to take you to the Louvre and let you look at some paintings while you decide if you want to be an artist or not. It might be a little too much too quick.
Well, maybe, but maybe you're in the wrong business if that's what this movie does to you.
It is one that is, it is very aspirational rather than attainable.
Right. So we follow Everett from the parking lot into the gymnasium as he speaks to his friend Benny. Something's wrong with the recording equipment, and Everett ought to know a thing or two about recording equipment since he's the town's DJ down at the radio station. People are constantly speaking over each other as the camera follows him around, and small dramas play out as we watch Everett navigate through all of this without a single cut. And this will be happening for a while. And honestly, I didn't remember how Goonies, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the opening of this movie was. And if you are just going into this cold, the first 20 minutes is difficult to get through because not only are people talking over each other, but we're introduced to so many different characters and you can't really understand what everyone is saying and you can't really tell who's who. But there's really only two people you'll need to remember from this opening sequence, Everett and Faye Crocker. And Everett keeps throwing out lines like, what's the barn buzzer's buzz, man? Like, and he says it so fast that you're like, what did he just say there?
That's one of the things that I really liked about this. And we'll get into it, I'm sure, later. But like the consistency of everything looking and feeling authentic. Nothing ever feels like somebody is just going, hey, daddy-o. All of it feels authentic and real.
This is something that feels incredibly authentic, made by people who weren't there.
Yeah.
I'm probably a little more impressed with the Duffer Brothers because I was there for the part they're recreating and they weren't. But this one, neither of us were there, so I don't know how accurate it really is. but it's just impressive to me that somebody in their 30s could have made this.
And when you look at Everett, one of our two main characters here, like Everett is definitely cool. Like he's definitely a cool character, and he's portrayed as somebody who is cool. But there's something that's not 100% cool about him, which makes him such a better character.
He's Rivers Cuomo.
His pants are a little too high for him. Like he's got the old man thing where his pants are super high waisted, and he's wearing the hell out of that sweater that he's got on, but like the pants are completely like betraying him and his coolness, which makes it that much cooler,
Right.
And it also makes it look authentic, where it's like, oh right, they're not going to have tailored pants for this character in the 50s.
Man. And the high school, I guess she's a high school girl. She's an
we'll
operator.
get there. We'll get there.
Okay.
We I promise you, we will get there.
And in my mind, I don't recall where we are, so I apologize.
Okay, no worries. So Everett walks over to the bandstand as the basketball team warms up, and we meet the secret weapon of this movie, the character Faye Crocker. Faye is the other main character of the movie, played by Sierra McCormick. She's playing a 16-year-old girl. She looks like a 16-year-old girl because she was 18 when they shot this movie. She also looks like, behaves like, and moves like my ex-wife if my ex-wife had red hair. Faye is seated with the pep band because she's in band, but she can't play with them tonight because she has to work as a switchboard operator due to the fact that she's the child of a single mother, which we'll learn later. She wants Everett to look at her tape recorder she just bought with her own money from the Montgomery Ward catalog. She wants him to teach her how to use it. And this may be an excuse to talk to him, but I get the feeling that it isn't because she's attracted to him. It's because she finds him interesting. But what did you guys think? Did you catch any of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I caught that a lot.
That is
the chemistry you're talking about, like the chemistry between the two of them?
Right, but the chemistry is a different kind of chemistry to me, where she's not attracted to him. She just thinks he's interesting. Right.
Yeah, it's like a mentor. She's looking for a mentor, and to his benefit, I think he interprets it as such, and he's not trying to exploit her in any kind of creepy way. And and I think he's trying to serve as a good mentor,
which easily could have been. And let's be frank, I'm sure we all thought at some point, like, oh boy, let's hope we don't go down this big, and they never do.
Well, let's just be honest. If it was an actual radio DJ in the 1950s, it absolutely would have went down that path,
without a doubt.
But it was like, I don't know, it was refreshing to not have any of that stuff and just have that, like, yeah, she totally respected him and just kind of wanted to she just liked him a lot.
It's also far more interesting that they're not romantically involved. Like it is 100 times more interesting watching these people interact with each other, because they're not nice to each other the entire time, and like making smacky face with each other. They're literally like mean. Like there's that one point where she's like, why do you always talk like that when you're on the radio? And he's like, and he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, you act all fake when you get on the radio. It's so great.
Like this is not only a love story to film and a love story to the Twilight Zone and all that sort of thing. This is a pretty cool story about radio, and like I watched this set in 1950, and I think of my childhood in the 80s and even like in the later 90s and early 2000s. Up until pretty recently, radio was like the last bastion of local production.
Yeah.
Like even like the evening news had gotten to where it's only big cities, you know what I mean? It's not like, but every little town used to have their own locally done radio channel, and
then Clear Channel ruined that too.
I know, but as a child, like I was so mesmerized with radio because it was the last time you could be the voice of your community. We talked I think before we started recording, we talked about a movie called Pontypool, where a guy is just trying to save this little tiny Canadian town from a disaster from his radio booth. And here we got the same kind of thing. Like there's some kind of disaster, I'm the voice, coming at you live like I do every night. I'm the voice in your radio. And he talks to him, and this whole community's coming together and trying to save the world. And it all goes back to that whole Orson Welles urban legend. Of course, we've found out it's not really true, but the whole War of the Worlds, where people would tune into the radio and think this is my outlet to the outside world. I just love it, and I love this love story to radio. And
where can we? Where can I see Pontypool?
You would probably just have to go to the search function.
Probably just Amazon, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure you could find it on Amazon. You may have to rent it though. It's one of those things. It's like probably CBC produced, so they're not eager to just give it away. Sure. But yeah, I'm sure you can get it's worth paying $3 for.
Yeah, it looks like it's just rentable right now for the most part.
Yeah, I've never seen Pontypool streaming for free.
Okay. So then Everett learns that some lady that works at the school that the wiring in the gym is messed up. And she tells him that the school custodian was asking for him and to go take a look. And she goes on and on about rats chewing through scoreboard wires and squirrels taking down the entire electrical system in the school, and even an owl that killed so many rodents that Helen Trank found a bat skull in the pocket of her band uniform. And
great.
But none of this really means anything. It's just setting up mood for the movie and letting the audience know that there's something wrong with the electricity inside the school gymnasium.
Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about Faye, right? That's the character's name?
Sure.
If may I?
Sure.
Okay. Because I know you had mentioned like reminiscent of your ex-wife with different hair color. Mm-hmm. But when I'm seeing this very driven, very intelligent, very clever band member, young woman in glasses with a ponytail. I mean, I'm seeing Sophia when I'm watching this girl run around. And it's like some of the stuff she says, why is your voice different when you're on your podcast? I mean, I can just hear my daughter saying those things to me. You can go to YouTube and see us interacting on plenty of videos and decide for yourself. But I just see like, that's like, my daughter really getting enthusiastic about stuff and rolling into things.
Well, just so for those who don't know, and just so I don't look like a giant creeper, the entire family had gone to Target one day to pick up some stuff. It is my then wife and my two daughters. The woman behind the checkout line says, "Oh, are you here with your daughters?" And I said, well, the one in the middle is my wife and she's 30. So,
oh man, so everyone, all the memories, when my wife and I first got married, we had a lot of that where she, like, people thought, oh, are you a high school cheerleader or something? She's like, no, I'm an old lady. But anyway, I used to love it. We would go somewhere and the guy would say, I need to see an ID. And I would pull out mine and go, sure, I'll look at yours too if you want me to. Like, I got a lot of that when I traveled with her. Now they want to make sure that we're young enough to get into places.
So the school lady and the custodian get into an argument about, I told you to bring Emmett down here, not Everett. And it's at this point that I start to worry that I picked the wrong movie.
Why? I love it.
Because Bruce, forgive me for saying so, this is Bruce Leslie dialogue. That's why it's beautiful. This is so annoying, and like it's it's like time filling, like there's nothing, there's no reason to have it here other than just to set mood, right? And so like when bring Emmett down here, not Everett, and I'm like, man, I might have to do something else here, like, because I remembered I'm kind of questioning my frame of mind when I first saw this movie, because I remembered really liking this movie, and so I was like, oh man, like this is nearly unwatchable right now, because like I can't really figure out where we are. Like this isn't set up like a traditional movie, and now on top of everything else, we're being annoying for the sake of being annoying, and it was just so angering.
But I mean, I don't know, I'm thinking that has to come from maybe a guy looking at people like Linklater and Kevin Smith, and they made up for their low budget with a lot of goofy dialogue that some people like. So maybe they're taking.
But I mean, the
stab
Kevin Smith of it all is that Kevin Smith is introducing a style of joke with Clerks that you had never seen in a movie before.
Yeah,
Whereas with this Everett Emmett mix up, that is some Abbott and Costello hackery, where it's just like, God Almighty, let's move on.
I grew up in the 80s, but the town I was in was at least 30 years behind the times. So I can say this feels pretty authentic to me. This is a thing that I would be overhearing when I was annoyed at something that I came to do.
Well,
Bruce, I said Bryce. You said Bruce from the podcast. Bryce had a podcast. Oh boy,
there is part of this though, like, because I grew up in a tiny little town in the South that, again, like Bruce's was, probably 15, 20 years behind the times as it was at that particular point and everything. So much of this feels so real to me. This tiny little town where it's just like everybody on this one particular night is at this one spot here and everything.
Yep.
And
but that part all rings true to me. Yeah. It's just that because I'm not, when you're watching this cold, like think of it as just like a regular person watching a movie, and not people who are, like we're now almost 10 years into watching bad movies, like, so if you're just if you're going into this cold as a regular person watching this movie, it's not set up like a traditional movie. It's, and for me, my ears, I'm having a hard time understanding what everyone's saying to each other. And I don't know who I'm supposed to be following. Like, clearly I'm supposed to be following Everett because he's, one of our two mains. But everyone else, like, am I supposed to know who his fat friend is? Am I supposed to know?
Follow Emmett? I'm confused.
So funny. So then there's like the horn, like he steals the horn from that kid, locks it into the closet. Is that going to be something that I need to know about later? Like all this stuff. And then on top of all that, you have the Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, like annoying for annoying's sake kind of a thing happening, where it is so hard to, like, oh my God, I am now 10 minutes, 15 minutes into this movie, and they are literally making it a job to follow this character right now.
Different feathers tickle different people, but I'm really pulled into this at this point. So,
because it's kind of
polarizing. You said yourself going into it was polarizing. So now we're seeing it.
Yes, because it's about your taste, right? So to get back to it, so I can't tell, like even though I don't drink and do, or I don't drink and I don't do drugs, like I'm trying to remember. I remember that I watched it during COVID, right? That I watched this movie during lockdown, and it's kind of like that same level of excitement when you got to see a new movie that you hadn't seen before during that time, where it was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Yes. And like, it's, even when I'm having a hard time getting through this part, like I know this isn't a bad movie, right? It's beautifully shot and the acting is amazing. It's just at this point, it is the writing that is killing me. Like, it's the dialogue that is absolutely killing me watching this movie. Everett leaves and we meet back up with Faye, where he says to her, "What's the tale, Nightingale?" And Faye brought her tape recorder to show Everett. He shows her how to use it, but recording her own voice makes her nervous. And Everett says, "We're recording, let's bake biscuits," which is the same thing Adam says whenever he presses record on our show.
True.
They wander around the parking lot as more and more people show up for the basketball game, and Faye and Everett mess around with Faye's tape recorder, and they start talking to one guy. And Everett says, "Tape recorder's broken. We'll have to interview you another time." And they walk away. And Everett admits that the tape recorder isn't really broken. He lied because the guy they were talking to was too boring.
I love it.
Which leads Faye to say my favorite line in the movie: "You double dealing devil dog." I love it. Faye and Everett walk to their jobs from the high school basketball game, letting you know just how small this town is. There's two things that are informing you here that this is a very small town. One is that Everett knows everyone, right? As he's walking around, He knows every single person's name down to everybody, even in that scene that I absolutely despise, where the ever Emmett, like that crap, like he knows everybody that's there under the bleachers. He knows everyone's name. Everyone knows his name. And now we get to see them walk to work from their high school. There is no way you could do that where I'm from. Like it would take you 100 years to get to work where I worked from my high school. Walk to the basketball game.
While you're catching, let me just, one of the things that's interesting about this, and like, while it could seem like a lot of, crazy Robert Altman-esque dialogue overlapping that just kind of blah, 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 and doesn't really inform anything. One of the big things that this does do, because so many of these are in big, giant one-er shots and whatnot, is you are really getting the lay of the land. You know where everything is at and its correspondence within the actual town itself. There's so much of that that's really important to just going like, hey, here's where all of this stuff is and their relativism to what's going on right now, because it does later on come into play.
And I'm going to go ahead and say another thing that kind of surprises me on a low budget film is I think it's more expensive to do exterior shots at night than it is during the day. That's what I think.
Oh, my Lord. Yes, you're not
okay.
wrong.
So I'm just not trying to act like I know more than I know. Okay. I'm just saying what I think is true, because I don't have no way to know firsthand. But anyway, so the whole idea, it's like he or they, I don't want to just say one person. There's a whole team that made this, but this team set out to literally break all the rules, and they did it in a weird way. Like, rarely do people break all the rules to give you something that looks mainstream. You know what I mean? Usually you're breaking the rules to prove that you need something out of the mainstream, but this is a inverse rule breaking that I'm impressed with.
And by the way, as we're discussing all this, the camera, at least, I mean, I'm sure that there's an edit in here and there, but at you as a viewer, the camera hasn't cut. We have not changed camera shots yet. The camera keeps following Everett around through all of this, these first 15, 20 minutes. And it's not showy. It's not like, hey, look at what we're able to do. Like, you're just following this kid, and there's so many things happening all at the same time that it doesn't want to show you how great they are at moving cameras around.
Once again, the feeling I'm getting here is we're making a really good movie that looks this way because we want it to look this way, not because we're trying to prove we can make a movie that looks this way. Do you follow me there? I mean,
totally.
Psychology is always a guessing game for me, but that's what I'm guessing.
It's the term that there's the term that I've heard for this before, and it's a divisive term, but it's something that like it hits it, which is called athletic camera making.
Yeah.
Where like it's a good example of that is the point of view movie. What is it called?
Hardcore Harry or whatever.
Thank you. Hardcore Harry really, really wants to let you know how awesome they are at shooting a movie. And it's kind of the thing that it puts you at arm's length with that movie, where you're like, yeah, we get it. You guys are really, really awesome. This movie does not have that feeling to it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Like, I don't want to say to its detriment at all, but I just wonder if maybe it would be a little more talked about if they at least did something to jab at people a little bit. I don't know. I'm still just amazed that I didn't know this existed before now.
Well, Bruce, I think that this is one of those movies that over time is going to it's going to snowball. It's just that, you're in on the ground floor 4 years later,
which is kind of crazy that the ground floor is still around 4 years later.
Yeah. So Faye starts talking to Everett about some new technology she read about in a magazine. Everett says things like, "Raz my berries," and "Whoa, lay dead." And the last story Faye Crocker tells Everett is that in the future, babies will be assigned a phone number for life. And she gets into it. Basically, Faye is describing smartphones, and Everett doesn't believe her.
This is where I picture the cynical Shawnzy baby not liking her prediction of smartphones, because it's just like it's the kind of thing, if this really were an episode of the Twilight Zone, people would be amazed at, but trying to retroactively make it like that doesn't work for you, I'm guessing.
The only reason why it does work is because he the first two stories where, you know, everything's pneumonic tubes and the roads are electronic, you know, like
it was very much like a conversation with my kids too, when they tell you two things that kind of are paradoxical to one another, and then he says, well, which is it going to be? Is it going to be the self-driving cars or the pneumatic tubes? And that's the kind of thing I will ask people to get them really not want to talk to me again.
And that part is well written, because, you know, hey, hold on a second, let me ask you, like, you know, is it the first thing or the second thing? And then once she gets into the third story where she's talking about smartphones, and he just completely waves it away, like it's fine. It's cute. Like it doesn't make me angry.
But there's enough little things even within that one that are just slightly wrong to where it's like, okay. You don't feel bad because it's not dead nose on to everything. It's like, and then you'll have something called an iPhone. It's like, we don't do that, thankfully.
It's like treading dangerously close to the Back to the Future. The president's Ronald Reagan, who's the Secretary of State, Shirley Temple, or whatever it is he says.
Yeah.
Janeway.
Yeah.
It's getting dangerously close to, like, look how cute we are. At this thing that's real would sound so ridiculous in the past, but I enjoyed the writing of it all because I'm just impressed with how it looks. I'm going to be honest. I probably, if I rewatched it, I'd be a little more critical of the storytelling and stuff. But that first time through, I was just enjoying watching something for the show for the first time in a while, which is a nice feeling.
So Everett says that's cuckoo, which is something that I think that we don't use enough anymore. And he walks her up to her door for work, and we are 18 minutes, 34 seconds into the movie, and we get our first cut. And only the second cut of the movie so far, Faye Crocker walks into work where she's relieving the switchboard operator who's been there, and she says, I saw the other basketball team get off the bus. They were real tall, and there's a bunch of Indian boys on their team, 4 or 5 of them. Keep in mind, this movie takes place in the 50s, so I'm sure Jordan is on everyone's mind. Phil Jordan, that is, the first Native American basketball player to play in the NBA. Played for the Knicks.
Nice pull,
look it up.
Johnsy.
I ain't lying.
Nice.
I do like how they kind of go like, listen, there's a couple of them on the team. They're probably all brothers. Yeah, we're just gonna get whooped.
Like, yeah. They look like men when they put their uniforms on. She says they're like, oh man, we're getting whooped. We then get to the second secret weapon of this movie, which is Faye Crocker sits down at the switchboard and actually uses the switchboard.
It looks so good. She's moving right. It feels like that is her job.
Now
it's not clever editing to look like she knows what she's doing. Like, well, I probably shouldn't name the actress, but my friend worked on a movie one time where she was the prop lady on that show. And a very famous actress needed to put a record onto a record player and turn it on and play it. And the actress could not figure it out.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't mention the names. We don't need any more celebrity beef.
Come at us, Dustin Hoffman.
But here, you were talking about finding a location and writing to suit it or making it work around. I feel like this guy knew of this incredibly well-preserved old switchboard and had access to it, because why else do you make your high school kid have a night job as a switchboard operator?
Gotta be.
Like, that is a thing that I think happened exactly 0 times.
So
and it looks beautiful, and there's no way that with the budget they had, they built that or made that or bought that or rented that. Like that was something that he knew of and could get access to.
Yeah, more than likely.
Faye Crocker tries to connect a call, but the line goes dead. She turns on the radio so she can listen to Everett, but Everett cuts out and a strange humming noise cuts off Everett's broadcast. The switchboard starts ringing again, and another phone call is cut short by the same humming we heard from the radio in the last call that was cut short. There's something weird about this noise when Everett's radio broadcast becomes alive again, and Faye calls another switchboard operator to ask if she's ever heard this strange noise before. She hasn't. Another call comes in, and a lady with a shrill, annoying voice starts yelling into her telephone. There's something hovering over her farm, a large object with the power of a tornado. The electrical humming gets louder, and the lady with the most annoying voice in Cayuga says, "Call the police. We're going to hide out in the cellar." But then her call gets cut off by the weird electrical humming. Faye Crocker patches into a couple of other calls, each one of which cuts out. This is all one shot. The camera barely ever moves, and it is riveting.
Every time you point out these long one shots, I didn't even realize they were one shots because I'm so pulled into the story.
That's why the thing is, it's like we have the one thing that this show does is like we sit with these people for so long in so many of the shots, but we are theater of the minding everybody here. This is where this show's got its real weight, is because everything is written so well. You're picturing everything that you're talking about, hearing someone on a phone or a radio or something. They are just painting pictures with words, and you don't have to see those things on scene. You've seen them in your mind, and they're doing such a great job laying all that out for you.
Yeah. Faye Crocker then calls Everett. He says he'll play the sound over the radio and see if anyone has information about this mysterious noise. Then, at 30 minutes, 45 seconds, we get the second cut of the entire movie. Faye Crocker leaves her post at the switchboard, opens the door to smoke a cigarette. As she opens the door, we then start a scene that I am going to call from this point forward the greatest camera move I've ever seen. And until I watched a featurette on this shot, I had no idea how they did it. Do you guys want to start talking about it now, or do you want me to? Continue?
I want to hear about this shot.
Okay, so camera goes past the switchboard office, past Faye Crocker, turns down Main Street, goes a block, then starts going through a field. And at this point, I'm thinking as I'm watching it, okay, this has to be a really good drone operator, but no, it's not.
Is it Steadicam?
We'll get to it because the pace of the camera. The camera starts moving faster and faster, which a drone can't do. And it looks like it's going about 25 miles an hour through this field. We go past a farmhouse, through a driveway, into a parking lot.
It's making turns that a drone also could not be taking.
Right. And then we go into the Cayuga High School gymnasium, past a group of people standing in the entrance to the gym, into the gym. We're watching the basketball game. Camera goes out, it goes up into the bleachers, past the announcer's table, goes into the crowd. Then the camera goes all the way up to the top of the steps and goes out of a third floor window and goes down to the ground outside.
And then shoots up again.
And then starts going fast after that again. And it continues all the way to the radio station where Everett works, and we see Everett smoking a dart where the phone is ringing. The camera goes to where the phone is ringing, and Everett picks up the phone.
But before you tell us how the shot is made, I just got to ask one question. Were helium balloons involved? Because I got ideas.
No.
Oh, shoot.
So, Adam, any guesses?
Yeah, I looked a little bit because I too was curious.
Oh, you did? You saw the featurette?
Like, how did you do this? By the way,
well, I'm clueless, and it's so impressive. I don't even want to try to figure it out on my own because it would hurt. It would be hard for me to even try.
So the first thing you have to think about is that they don't have the money for a Steadicam. Like they don't have a Steadicam operator. They don't have a Steadicam. So basically what they have to do is they have to build their own gimbal for their camera. Now, something that's going to keep down on the movement of the camera.
Man, it's crazy. You can build your own gimbal.
Well, so you can do
cheaper than you can like hire Steadicam operator.
Well, okay, so let's talk about a couple things because it's more or less just like, stuff that really you could get, Bruce, at a really easy price here at point and everything.
Yeah.
And then they just go nuts. And so one of the reasons that because it was a head scratcher, you're just like, boy, we are riding really close to the ground. We're going super, super fast here. And again,
you're
you do
feeling a
drone.
couple of the bumps too, which was the part that I was like, how are they doing this?
So, but how did they go out the window and down?
Okay, so first of all, it's one shot, but it's at least 3 shots, and this is one of the things I want to talk about.
3 shots, and there is 3 shots.
I can always count on Adam to poo-poo any one or
no. But like that was my next point. Is that be it this shot or any of the other oneers and stuff, they are done so impressively that you don't see the stitch. That's the toughest
they do
part.
The Birdman thing with those cuts that are just impeccable.
Honestly, I think they do it like no disrespect. I think they do it better than Birdman because there are Birdman ones where
we're saying Birdman did it great and they did it greater.
It's the old just like pass something very close to the front of the lens and everything, and that's like an easy cut. But they don't do that. There's not a lot of that stuff. There's a couple of green screen things going, the long shot into the gym and then up to the 3rd floor, and then that's green, and then out from there.
Going up to the sky is an easy cutting point.
Yeah, so there's a couple of points where it could easily be done, but like it never slaps you with it. It looks good. It looks better than, frankly, a lot of those big Hollywood movies that try to do these oneers like that.
What's propelling the gimbal?
A go-kart.
So there's two things here, right? So the thing that's making the camera go faster and faster is that they rented a go-kart from a kid who lived in the town.
Now that is some like old school B-movie making. That's like Evil Dead quality movie making right there.
But that's why they need the gimbal, because if you don't have the gimbal on that camera, there is no way your shot is going to be that smooth. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. The second part is that when they go all the way up to the top of the bleachers, out the window, down to the ground, that is what the director is calling a handoff, but I actually think what they ended up doing is that they ended up taking they just didn't want to say this because it was probably a rental, is that they put the camera out the window and then dropped it on a line like probably
see I was picturing I was joking about a helium balloon, but I was picturing like a rope on it so you could cantilever it to go up in the air, then you pull the rope to pull it back down. So instead of dropping it, I was picturing like a cantilever jumping it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. See, with this, probably my guess is because we don't see the actual behind the scenes, we just kind of hear him talking about it and everything. But my guess
I remember thinking like, wow, they worked a crane shot into this oneer and I didn't notice it, but I guess it wasn't a crane shot.
No, and because
no crane,
and because they've gone inside the gymnasium and gone up to the green screen for the window, this is where your shot stops, so you can easily then lower it from that angle, get it all the way down, and do it pretty simply and easily that way. Which one of those things where it's like it's the easy answer and it's surprisingly the best one. And you're like,
because it's also much, much harder. like that's the other part to this, is that when they drop the camera, it has there's 2 positive benefits to that, which is that they're hiding the go-kart, because remember, go-kart drives all the way up to the front of the high school gymnasium. But once the camera goes inside of the gymnasium, then the go-kart has to drive around to the back side of the gym, because the camera is going to get dropped back into it, where it then has to drive off again.
And that with is the camera right there.
Well, if they did it that way, which they
probably didn't, but you're right.
I was thinking of all the. Are you guys familiar with this weird Russian one-shot thing in the Hermitage from years ago?
Yes, where it's the one-shot movie. Yes,
yeah, and it's all the acrobat. Yeah, well, I'm thinking of a smaller version of that when you're telling me about getting it up, dropping it back on the go-kart running across town.
Yeah,
it makes me think like that's how they planned it, but it really turned out like One Take of the Dead, if you recall that movie.
The director, is it the director or the actor? But I can't remember who it is. But one of them with the Hermitage says, because the actor looks directly into the camera, which is the only time that that something is wrong with the movie.
Yeah.
And I think it might be the actor is like, I would have rather have killed myself than looked into the camera. Look at something like that. I know.
Speaking of crew members, the guy who drove the go-kart, the executive producer.
Yeah.
See, that's why people go into executive producing, is the sweet go-kart rides.
Heck yeah.
So back to the breakdown. So Everett picks up the phone. We get to the third cut of the movie. We are 35 minutes in. It's the third cut of the movie. Name of the radio station is WOTW, which is a shout out to War of the Worlds, because this is a movie made by people who know what they are doing.
And I kind of feel smart for like saying the radio thing. I totally didn't catch that War of the Worlds reference, but I still caught the War of the Worlds influence. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah. On the other end of the phone is Faye Crocker. She's patching in a call to the radio station from a guy from out of town. Maybe he knows something. An African-American guy named Billy, which is weird because I've never met a black guy named Billy, but it turns out Billy was in the military and they were always putting him on jobs that no one knew anything about. The screen then fades to black as Billy is in mid-conversation. And it turns out they drove Billy and a squad of guys out into the middle of the desert where they built a giant hole in the ground with cement floors and concrete blocks. One morning, Billy wakes up and there's a giant machine covered in a tarp in the hole that's bigger than an airplane. Once the building is finished, the squad got put on a plane. And when the aircraft turned on and the propellers started spinning, the radio turned on and it started making a sound. And the same sound Everett played on the radio tonight. Dum, dum, dum.
And it gives you like the weird random detail that makes a fake story seem real. Because like totally, if you're telling a lie, you don't need to say, and it was a square hole, like he threw in like enough detail there that in my opinion, I think helps sell it.
Well, that's another
would think of doing.
That's another secret to this movie is that they add so much detail to all these stories that you just take it as rote, right?
And it really does homage well too, because I think that's something that you can struggle with. Where's the line between homage and I don't know, aping?
Rippage.
Yeah, I was going to use aping instead of rippage to be a little more polite, but yeah, they really do a good job of the homage side of things without just retelling something that's already been told.
So the plane took off, and as the plane is taking off, Billy notices that soldiers are shoveling dirt all over the runway like no one had ever been there. When Billy got back to civilization, he started getting really sick, and in the next few weeks, he developed a lung condition. Black again continues his story. He talked to several other guys years later, and the sound that they were hearing wasn't military, and it wasn't from any other country. It's a communication of some kind. It's all over. It's infrequent. And then the line cuts off dead. And Billy calls back. Everett asks, why are you telling us all this? And Billy says the line, because I'm sick and I'm old and no one listens to us. And the reason why no one listens to Billy is because he's black. And Everett says, I thought that might be the case. We've never had a black caller before. And it is an incredibly powerful moment. And if you couldn't tell, I'm no longer thinking I picked the wrong movie. This is like, oh, this is the movie that I remember.
What if instead he'd said, Billy, I thought this was Willie. You told me Willie was on the phone, not Billy. Now that would have really saved it.
That would have been a Bruce Leslie original.
Point of privilege though. We do have Billy Graham, black comic book artist.
I think you're talking about superstar Billy Graham, wrestling Hall of Famer.
Oh.
Or the preacher guy.
Yeah. A lot of options.
So Billy says everyone doing these clandestine jobs for the government were black or Mexican doing the sweat work, and the camera fades out again. The government did it on purpose because even if these squad guys did talk about the jobs they were on, who was going to listen to them? But we don't have to take Billy's word for it. One guy started recording these sounds on his own and mailed them to the other guys in the squad. One of them lived in Cayuga, and when he died, his widow sent the tapes to the library. Billy says, if you're going to play those tapes, do it, because they're in the sky now and they don't stay for long. To which Everett says to Faye, quick, Faye Crocker, run to the library. And boy, does she run to that library. She has the dopiest run you've ever seen, just like my ex-wife, and she breaks into the librarian's house, steals the keys to the library, then steals the librarian's bike. Dirty pool, Faye Crocker.
I love it.
Dirty
it's
pool.
So awesome. So awesome. I love every bit of this girl.
I love how her major transportation is running. She just goes from one place to another.
She even mentions it. She's like, I don't ever take a car anywhere. I walk everywhere. She rides the stolen bike to the librry and then throws the bike down, which made me cringe because I know how much that bike costs. You know,
I didn't even think real world. You know, like now I get it why somebody might cringe when you're thinking about the actual bike on set getting thrown down. But I'm just thinking in context of the movie, I love that maneuver.
Oh man, it made me cringe so hard. I was like, oh my God, that actress just threw that bike down, and that bike is like $1,000.
Yeah, I never even thought of it from a real world perspective.
So she busts into the library, she grabs the tapes, runs out the door, when who should pull up in a stolen car? It's Everett. And this is the point where I put together that Everett has a really Herrick Connick Jr. and the Iron Giant vibe to him.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I can see that.
Good call.
They drive back to the radio station so they can listen to the tapes. And here it is, secret weapon number 2 again, because we see that the actor who's playing Everett actually knows how to spool a reel of tape properly and play it. He has clearly done this so many times that his hands are smart.
It's effortless. He is just doing it because, like, especially somebody like, because when I edited, first got into like news editing and stuff, we were still doing tape to tape, and there is like with the little shuttle jog and everything, there is a musicality to that comes out of your hands that you just it's just there, and he has that so much to where you just see him spooling it out, and because he's taking them on and off this thing with such natural just ability to do so. You buy it 1,000,000,000%. And it's just like,
it's second nature, man. It's like literally second nature because he's smoking a cigarette as he's talking to Faye. He's not even thinking about putting the reels together. He's just doing it.
I saw another lower budget movie this week that's a good counterpoint to this, because this guy's gutting a fish. You know, simple thing. He's gutting a fish, but you never see the actor's hands and face in the same shot. So that's where you know, like, this actor had no idea how to gut a fish. So they brought in some guy who's just tearing that fish's guts out. And then you go to look on the face and he's moving his head side to side, then back to the hands. So they could have easily tried to pull a little squeaker like that. But no, they got a guy who knew what he was doing, as you said before, Sean.
And because we're watching a movie that isn't your typically made movie, they don't play 2 wrong tapes and the third one is the one they're looking for, like every other movie ever. They keep having to listen to tape. They're listening to tape after tape. They're going through tape after tape, and we learn character development as they're going through the tape. Are you kidding me?
There's only one or two times, and not during this scene, but 1 or 2 times elsewhere where we're going back to the tape where it goes specifically where they want to. Every other time they have to search for it, and that's great.
Man, Everett wants to get a better job in radio. He wants to get out of this town, maybe somewhere out west. Faye Crocker also wants to get out of this town, but she isn't sure where or how, because she can't afford to go to college. And then they find the correct tape, play it on air, and the power shuts down at the radio station. They run outside. Oh, so good. They run outside. Faye Crocker is flipping out, and she realizes then that she hasn't been at the switchboard for a really long time. And when you think about it, if Faye Crocker doesn't get fired from the switchboard tomorrow, it's probably because they couldn't find anyone else to take the job.
Yeah.
Because she is neglectful at her duties at this job.
She's worse than having no one there, I think.
Right. And so she needs to get back to the switchboard. Everett's driving Faye Crocker back. when and he says that he thinks this is all being done by Russians. They would invade through the southern border, sort of a Red Dawn scenario, except in the 50s, everyone in America had military training because they had just come back from the war.
Yes.
Faye takes care of a bunch of calls. Her switchboard is lighting up, and every call has to do with people saying that they're seeing something in the sky. Our two mains go back outside to see if they can see something, and they run into a couple named Bertsy and Gerald. Gerald starts snapping at Bertsy when she introduces him as Jerry. She knows that he wants to be called Gerald, which makes me want to call him Jerry twice as hard for some reason.
Has she stolen the baby yet?
No.
Okay.
They've also seen something in the sky, Jerry and Bertsy, and they're chasing it with their car. But there's a call at the switchboard, so Faye Crocker actually does her job, runs back inside to the switchboard, and who calls the switchboard? A creepy old lady. She says she has information on what's happening tonight, and Everett should come over because she don't move too good.
And that's the difference between now and the 50s. There ain't nobody going to your house now.
Now, if this was me and a creepy old lady I never met before said she wanted me to come over to her house in the middle of the night, there is no way I would go.
It's a big old fat no. Thank you.
I spritz a little Dracar Noir behind the ears and I jump in the old car.
Everett does. He takes Faye Crocker with him. And as they're headed to the creepy old lady's house, Faye asks if she should bring her recorder. And Everett says no, the one he has is better. Her tape recorder is more of a toy.
Oh, now we call that consumer grade.
And he says out loud that he hopes he hasn't hurt her feelings, to which she says, "You haven't hurt my feelings." And Everett responds, "Okay, good. I hurt girls' feelings a lot."
That was one of the best lines I've ever seen in any movie.
In a bit of perfect timing, Faye says under her breath, "Maybe if you weren't such a jerk, you would hurt girls' feelings all the time." It is the funniest moment in the movie.
Yes.
It is a 1-2 punch where you're like, these actors have some comedic timing as well as everything else they're very, very good at.
Yeah.
They get to the creepy old lady's house. All the lights are off, and she's chanting to herself in a weird language. Yet again, what are we doing, Everett?
Yeah, it's called 180 and haul the other direction. The second you start hearing Latin or any other kind of things that you don't understand, gets to getting.
Yes, and it's completely off-putting. It's one of those things that old people do where they have no idea just how strange they're being. My dad is like this. She's doing it for a purpose that we'll find out later, but it just seems like typical weird old people crap. After the initial creepiness, we learn that the creepy old lady is just 75% creepy, not old lady and drag me to hell creepy. She tells Everett and Faye her story. When she was little, a train came into town, and all the passengers on that train had vanished. A couple of days later, a woman wandered into town. You know, I got to stop this for a second. You know what this speech reminds me of the old lady talking about what's happened in her life? It really, yes, it feels exactly like the Indianapolis to me.
Me too.
I mean, the only thing missing is the shark. The black eyes.
Like all of eyes.
One of the greatest scenes in cinema, though. So it's homage. This is closer to rippage than homage, I think.
I'm sure she got it just as drunk as Robert Shaw did.
I know I would have if I was related to Robert Shaw or whatever.
So when she was little, a train comes into town, and all the passengers on that train had mysteriously vanished. A couple of days later, a woman wandered into town that had jumped off that train. She was dehydrated and wouldn't talk. A few days later, she starts chanting something that wasn't English or Spanish or Indian. But this old lady remembered what she was chanting. Then the next day, that lady who jumped off the train disappears. Some time passes, and the creepy old lady meets a guy and has a baby. The baby starts chanting the same words as the woman from the train. Baby would go to sleep at night and chant those same words. So she started writing the words down. One day she asked him about it, and her son didn't know what she was talking about. Then one night when he was 4 years old, she started hearing a large windmill-type noise, and her son was fixated on the windows, so she read the chant to him. His eyes closed, and he looked up at the ceiling. This story goes on for a long time, but I'm completely transfixed by it since the lady is a really good actress. I wonder where they find all these people, because there's not a bad performance in this movie, really. Like, where did you get all of these actors? You were in the middle of nowhere, Texas. When creepy old lady's son was 9, same thing happens again, only this time he walked out the front door of the house and vanished. He was taken, and no one ever believed her story. Everyone thought she killed him, but she didn't. The people in the sky took her son.
Little Close Encounters inspiration on that one.
A little bit. Creepy old lady thinks that people in the sky have a plan. They keep away from big cities. They wait until everyone gets together, kind of like tonight. Everyone's at the high school basketball game, remember? Everyone's going to get out of the game, and they'll be gone too. She thinks the people in the sky mess with people's heads. She's seen smart people go mad and good people go bad. They cause nations to go to war. No one knows they're being affected. After giving Everett and Faye Crocker all this information, the creepy old lady has one request. She wants him to take her with him. She wants to go to the ship so that she can see her son again. And in what might be the first time Everett behaves the same way I would around this creepy old lady, he stands up and leaves. Creepy old lady offers him the exact words that our chanting son said before he was taken, and Everett's all like, "Get out of my face. I don't want it. I'm gone." I don't know why, but what happens next is that Faye grabs her baby sister. After that scene with the old lady, she goes and grabs her baby sister. I didn't know Faye had a baby sister. And then Faye goes a few houses down and grabs her friend's camera. So if they see the ship in the sky, they'll have proof. And Everett walks into the house, and Faye's friend says, "You can't come in here. I have my nightgown on." To which Everett says, my second favorite line in the movie, "I'm not looking at you, and I don't care what you look like with your nightgown on." a very Jack Nicholson's Joker, where she goes, "You look fine," and he goes, "I didn't ask." It's so good. So then Gerald, not Jerry, pulls up in his car and says, "We saw the ship in the sky. Come on, let's go." So Everett, Faye Crocker, and Faye Crocker's baby sister jump into Gerald's car. They drive to the last place where they saw the ship.
So that's her sister.
Yeah.
Yes.
I missed that detail. I kept wondering, like, man, she just stole a baby. And she's running around with this stolen baby, and I didn't know whose baby it was. I did miss that detail.
It's her mother's baby, and it's kind of implied that it's not the same father. It's implied, but not explicit. Everett wants to play them the interview with the creepy old lady, but it starts with that old lady chanting the words that made her son catatonic. And when Gerald and Bertie hear the words, they close their eyes and start looking up to the sky, just like the crazy old lady's son. Turns out that Gerald and Bertie are affected too, which is why the creepy old lady was chanting the words earlier when Everett and Faye Crocker first walked into her house, because she wanted to see if they had been infected already. And if this movie had hands, I would high five it, because that is an awesome touch you never see in movies.
Did either of you guys listen to Howard Stern much, like 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, way back when, yeah.
Yeah,
there was this guy that would be on there a lot called Riley Martin, who claimed to have like these symbols and these incantations that would protect you from the aliens when they came. The coming of 10 this feels like, oh man, this is so much like Riley Martin's shtick when she's handing him the words to read to everyone you meet, but then it turns out to be true. I just thought it was cool.
So good, man. Gerald and Bertie snap out of it. They pull the car over, and they're apologizing like Ashton Kutcher trying to go to bat for his sexual predator friend. But they are having none of it. Everett, Faye Crocker, and Baby Crocker get out of the car and start running back to town through the woods. And this is when they see a bunch of weird things that have happened in the woods recently, maybe even a few minutes ago. Burnt trees and a pathway completely cut by something from the sky. They start running when they get to a clearing, and that's when they see it. A spaceship. It's large, and it looks like it's leaving Earth space. When everything gets dwarfed by an even larger, far more impressive spaceship. And the prophecy of Shaun Likes Spaceships has been completed, albeit in an hour and 22 minutes into this movie. I thought there was a lot more spaceships in this movie from the time I first saw it. I honestly thought like 25% of this movie was spaceships, but I remembered wrong.
Closer to 0% than 25.
It's true. It's very true. Our heroes look on in awe, except for Baby Crocker, who is asleep. The actor playing Baby Crocker, dead asleep during
Fire that child. That was the worst part of this whole thing. I'd be like, any little baby that would see it like this would be freaking out so hard.
One of the most clever things of this production is that wasn't actually a child. That was a little person. It was like that little man thing that the Wayans brothers did.
And that was his choice.
Oh, of course.
His choice was to fall asleep in the scene.
Weirdly, also played by Marlon Wayans, the baby in this movie.
Yes. The white chicks version of
It's
range.
white chicks and little man in
All
the
in
movie.
one.
I'll tell you,
Wind
Hollywood
picks
just keeps
up.
going back to the well, don't they?
Man. The wind picks up and Everett and Faye Crocker begin hugging each other. We cut to the basketball game getting out. Everyone seems to be fine. No one taken. We cut to the street where Everett left the stolen car. People are walking around it, not being sure what to make of it since it's still running and the driver's side door is open. We cut to the empty radio station, then the empty switchboard. We cut to the field that Everett, Faye Crocker, and Baby Crocker were standing in, but they're gone. All that remains is the tape recorder Everett was holding onto. They have been taken by the people in the sky. The end.
The great part about that too, though, is that the tape recorder and everything, when we go back to see it the second time and all that, has been there for a while because land is kind of not what's the opposite of erosion, but there's gathering of stuff around it. So like when we kind of discover that it had been there for a while at that point, it looks like.
Yeah, really nice touch. Well, like everything else in this movie.
Yeah, like I said, I had no idea what we were getting into with this, and obviously where things would end. But I am also glad that we did not try to go farther beyond the point that we do.
Yes, it would be a mistake if they did.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let's get on the ship. No, for the love of God, don't do that.
I think the big question for the filmmakers of this movie as they're making it is: do you show the spaceship? Do you show the aliens? Like, because they could have just cut where there's like lights on the actors and then they fade to black, but they don't do it that way. And I think that I like what they chose. I like that they chose that, okay, we are going to see the spaceships and it's going to be very, very impressive. It has that same feel of, man, this is going to seem so stupid, but the opening to The Greatest American Hero, when you see that ship, that is the most impressive part of that movie. It's also the thing that they spent all of their budget on. I think
they use that clip every week,
as they should, because it is so impressive.
Yeah.
And that's what this feels like to me. We're like, look, we have $750,000 to make this movie. Let's take $250,000 of those dollars to get some actual VFX guys to make our spaceships for us. And they did. And it is great.
Worth every penny too. A bargain.
Agreed.
What they paid for it.
I'm bargaining
totally
twice the price. Well, here at HMP, I don't know what you know, but we do something a little bit different around here. We relate every single movie or television show back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone. And sure enough, does this movie do that?
Hello, Mr. Stallone. What's the tale, Nightingale? This week, there is exactly one person who worked on the same project as you, who also worked on The Vast of Night. He is a visual effects artist from the country of Colombia, and his name is Alejandro Martin Grisano. He was the shading artist on The Vast of Night, but also in 2019, he worked as a molder and texture artist on Mortal Kombat 11. A game that you were also in, reprising your role as John Rambo. And if I may be blunt, sir, I think Mortal Kombat 11 might be my second favorite Rambo story told. I know there's 5 movies, but let's be honest here. First Blood is best. Then I'm going to have to go with Mortal Kombat 11. This is the last episode of Sean Likes Spaceships for a bit, so these Stallone connections won't be as short as they've been over the past month. I hope to hear from you soon. Your pal, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
If only he put in a little bit of effort into these shows. I don't know. Bruce, where do you put The Vast? Here at HMP, we have our own patented Robin rating system. Bruce, where does The Vast of Night fall in the Robin rating system for you?
Well, I think part of how you receive this movie is going to be based on how you watch movies and what you're looking for. So if you're just watching the movie for a good story, this is a Tim Drake. It's going to be a good story. You're going to have fun with it, good performances, and it is a solid Tim Drake. But if you're the kind of guy that watches movies the way some people watch sports and you like breaking it down, like Sean doing such a great job with that tricky shot,
Thanks,
and then like if you're a person who just enjoys how people deal with a challenge, this is going to be a Dick Grayson. And like, I don't know if me 10 years ago has any appreciation for this movie like I do now, just from talking to you guys over the years and understanding filmmaking more than I did before we started this podcast. But for me, it's a Dick Grayson. But even if you're not really all that interested in the art of movies or whatever, it's still a solid Tim Drake story.
Very good, Sean.
For me, this is a Dick Grayson, man. This is the rarest of movies where you watch a movie like this and it just inspires you to make stuff. That doesn't happen very often with pop culture. This is one of those things for me. And again, like I said at the top of the show, it is a divisive movie because not everyone is going to like this movie. And if you suggest it to certain people, they're going to be like, you're an idiot. This movie is terrible.
Yeah.
It's just the way people are going to be. But if you are someone who, like I said at the top of the show, understands that Starship Troopers isn't about the heroes from Earth like defending Earth against bugs. If they understand that, then you're really, really going to like it.
It's all about Denise Richards showering. I mean, what? Oh, my goal, I think for this one, I'm going to say it's a high Tim Drake. It's really good. I enjoy this. I think there are a couple of things just style-wise that I'm like...
yeah, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect movie.
That are like okay, and like a couple of the some of the dips to black for like so long a period going back and forth, and like I know why they're doing it and I get it. It's just like it feels like there could be something else for coverage as opposed to just going to black. But overall, again, I think Sean's very right. There's going to be a group of people that watch this that will not like it. But I think the majority of people that listen to this podcast probably will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because that's just like we know our audience over these years, and I really think that you guys will probably dig this if you haven't seen it as of yet. So high recommendations on all fronts here. Sean, I think we have been very successful in Sean Likes Spaceships month.
And I got to say specifically,
more winners and losers.
Yeah, this has been the best movie discussion I think we've had in a while. So, once again, mad props there, Sean, on the selection.
Oh, thanks, man.
Not
Thank you.
too shabby. Now we're going to see how it's all pairing out next week here, because as we said, the people that support the show over at patreon.com/HMP, pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone, and voting. You voted for werewolves here. So, Bruce, how are we kicking off the spooky season with werewolf movies? Where are we going first?
We're going to go with The Howling, a classic. One of the big three.
I like The Howling.
Yeah,
I like that movie.
3 when it comes to werewolf movies. People won't stop talking about The Howling, American Werewolf in London, and Wolfen. So all 3 of those will be there. Then the 4th one, well, we'll just have to wait and see.
What was that third one?
Wolfen. You wait. You're gonna.
Isn't there another franchise with werewolves in it that's much more popular than Wolfen?
I don't think so.
Even Wolf Cop's more.
I'm telling you, once you watch Wolfen, your appreciation of the werewolf movie genre will not be the same. We might watch Silver Bullet. Who knows? Silver Bullet's fun. It's bad, but it's one of those fun De Laurentiis movies made down in Wilmington.
We'll see about all of that stuff, and but join us next week for what's it again?
The Howling.
The Howling. They all start with H's and stuff, so I'm get confused a little bit. So next week for The Howling. All right, perfect. In the meantime, then, Bruce, where can they find you walking the streets of...
Can I do a little self-promotion here?
Please.
That's the point, right? I just want to say that out of my 27-page home movie script, the fun project I'm doing with my kids, hoping to have it done by Halloween, we have reached 14 minutes of edited, produced footage. So
nice, man.
On a 27-page script, that signifies I should be over halfway now. So it's all running downhill. Yes. Like I got enough, even if we shot no other footage, I would just do some weird wraparounds with me and still make something out of it. So it's a good feeling. So
I was impressed by the little CGI that you did with he's doing CGI flames and stuff. I was like, it's tracking it and everything. I was shocked. It was good.
Starting a forest fire in the middle of my neighborhood would be a good way to turn the public against my production. A
lot of production value, though. Gotta think about that.
But anyway, so just stay on the lookout. As soon as it's available, it's the kind of thing I'm gonna throw out on YouTube. It's mostly so I can have a backyard Halloween party and impress my friends and neighbors by showing them this thing that we made. But I will share it on YouTube. So you're on the lookout.
You're putting it on YouTube and not doing it directly to theaters. Okay, good. I just want to clarify.
Please don't get me going, Adam. Sometimes I struggle with maintaining my grip on reality enough.
It's fair.
I don't need you egging me on.
Sean, what else?
We have another show called Ahsoka 30 Questions, where each week we discuss the latest episode of Ahsoka in the style of a 30 questions format. So check that out.
That'll do it, everybody. Join us next week when we're talking The Howling? The Howling.
The Howling.
For Sweet Shots to go back to the internet, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Porters. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Martini.